Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. I don't even know what episode we're on. It's 200 something. Anyway, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for spending your precious attention and time with us today. I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of our sponsors, Lightheart Sanders, who I'd like to call a legacy sponsor. They've sponsored this forum for years. And then, of course, Qnity, who also is a great partner and a sponsor of this forum. So thanks for joining us today. And today we've got a special episode driven by a couple of milestones. One of them has to do with the recently updated MONEY EDU curriculum. And as many of you know, that our community consists of salon spas and med spas, as well as about 200 campuses that currently offer our MONEY EDU curriculum. And joining us today, we have the one and only Erin Kuhn Bhansali. Erin, I'm trying to remember when the last time you were actually a guest on Lightbulb Moments. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I think I think it was actually when the Neal family was on. So I'm happy to be back. What a pleasure to be invited. So thank you for having me.
It's a tough invite to get, but you got
It
one.
certainly is. I've only gotten it twice.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that. But anyway, you wear many hats within Qnity, and people don't know all the different hats that you wear within Qnity, but there is a really important hat that you wear, and that is that you really run the Qnity for Schools company, which was created back in 2021. So 5 years of this now. I think we actually released the curriculum. It was 5 years ago, about right now. And
We're wrong on the wrong dates because we went live October 2021. So it's October 2025. So it's 4 years.
23, 24, 25. Okay.
It's our fourth year.
I'm actually thinking about when we started the company. Okay.
You're thinking of the date the legal paperwork went, and I'm going to say when we went live. So potato, but yes.
Well, it's really incredible where that's gone because, we really we weren't in any beauty related schools. And now to be at 200 campuses is an incredible accomplishment by you and the Qnity for Schools team, of which there's some overlap between Qnity for salon spas and med spas and Qnity for Schools, but we won't get into that. But let's just jump right in because you are really on the front line when it comes to financial related matters. And shout out to everybody also to check out Erin's podcast, Money O2. Some incredible guests. I don't even know where you find some of these guests, but they are some phenomenal people that come from all different high places in commerce, in the government, practice, and just tons of wisdom in your Money O2 podcast. So people check that out. And you really have become quite a subject matter expert in this space by your own accord. So congratulations for that.
Well, thank you, Tom.
All right, let's get into, and we do a lot of data. In fact, at the very end, I've got an announcement on the data, which is really cool. Big milestone today on something data related, but we'll save that. Let's get first to the subject of student insights and data, okay? So you survey students on various financial literacy topics. What are some high-level statistics that stand out to you?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that I've spoken about quite a bit in presentations and I've also shared with our team and you is really just understanding the financial landscape of Gen Z. It's a population that has pretty specific financial concerns and patterns and frankly challenges that they're facing. I know for anyone who is a parent of a Gen Zer, they can also relate to that. And so Gen Z, just for those of you who don't know, is anyone between the ages of 13 to 28 right now. So really those, the youngest one or the oldest Gen Z are being 28 and some of the challenges and opportunities that they've had. But I think just some high level statistics on this is about 29% of Gen Zers at large live in poverty. even if not technically at the federal poverty level. United Way found that 40% of Gen Z adults fall into the asset limited, income constrained, yet employed population. And that really represents anyone who earns more than the poverty level, but not enough to afford the basics of where they live. They're also the least financially confident generation, and about half of Gen Zers actually rely on financial assistance from their parents or family members. And 50% of those respondents, this is from Bank of America, say that they don't make enough money to live the life they want to live. And so there's a host of reasons why that is, but bottom line, you also have this generation where they're absolutely going to be impacted by the massive adoption of AI, where traditional entry-level jobs and white-collar jobs are virtually being obliterated and eliminated. And so you have all these students that are professionals now that went to college and maybe got a degree that is frankly overnight no longer relevant. And so to me, this is actually a massive opportunity for those in the trades, right? And those in the trades where, again, traditional jobs cannot be obliterated overnight. So we see just the benefit that trade schools can offer, and also the reality of what is required to exist in this society. And you just simply cannot graduate school without understanding the basic financial realities and skills and knowledge to frankly just make a living, right? Make a living and be able to provide for yourself and family, but also let alone excel. And some of the guests and thought leaders that I've had on the podcast is just really the changing economic landscape that is going to be required. The traditional invest a certain portion of your income may or may not work for this generation. So
yeah. What's the most surprising finding you found from the surveys? And how many, our surveys, it's a very large sample size. We won't get into that. Let's stay with the most surprising finding.
Well, I think one finding that I found pretty interesting from the survey that we did, and Tom is a data guy, so I always like to distinguish studies versus surveys, right? Studies go through our rigorous process. They go through Tom and the data division. Surveys are just that. They're basic surveys. It's a self-assessment. And so we are really reliant on respondents to tell us answers. So this is a survey. We've had many people from our schools participate, but this sample size of this new one is only about 700, I think. So it is very preliminary, and I want to call that out.
That's
but
a pretty decent sample size.
It is a decent sample size. It's
Yep.
small for us
because our other ones are our other
10,
surveys. How many?
Just under 10,000.
Wow. All right.
So
Sorry,
so we do have quite a bit of findings, but this new one, we just released it. But one thing that, to answer your very direct question about what was surprising, was the sources of financial advice. I'll ask you this, Tom. What do you think people said was, this generation said was their biggest source of financial advice?
Instagram.
Wrong. That's what I thought. I thought it was going to be social media too. It's just under 70% said it's their parents or family.
Oh.
Only, I'm looking at the findings, only just under 20% said it was social media. So to me, what that, again, now what do you take from that answer, right? What I take from that answer is typically on social media, the algorithm serves you what you want more of, right? So what I get from that is they are not searching on social media for social media or advice, right? They're getting it from kind of passive sources, right? Their parents or family, but they're not going ready to learn and kind of seek out that information. That's just my preliminary finding of why that is, because I was very surprised by that.
So how does financial literacy vary amongst different school demographics and geographic regions?
I think it really depends on the socioeconomic background of students, right? We have a school group where 90% of their students rely on food stamps. Where the majority of their students happen to be career changers, single mothers who are going back to school to try to provide an income for their family. And so their reality around financial literacy, and this is something I think about often, is yes, they need financial education, and also they need like immediate resources to figure out how they're able to actually make it through school to get to the point where they can start to make a living. So that conversation, and this was one of the things that we had with updates, was, we had some feedback on our program where it was, I think it was one of the lessons, God, I'm trying to remember what the lesson was. It was about buying a $7,000 car. Oh, you use $7,000 car or something versus buying a new car. And one person in a very low socioeconomic background was like, these people don't get me. Like they don't get me. I can't even put food on the table, let alone even thinking about buying a car. Then we have a school who we're speaking with that is a luxury medical aesthetic school. It's in a very high-end affluent area where a lot of these people are coming from. They're already making money, or maybe they have families that can support them. And so really making financial education that can support those different financial situations. One is basic skills. They're probably more interested and they can have capacity to learn about investing and learn about how they're going to make money, where you have other people that are truly living paycheck to paycheck and thinking about how they're going to put food on their family's table. And so I think from our end as a company and an organization, it's very important that we speak to those different types of students and honor the different places students come from us or come
Yeah.
to the table to learn from.
Let's get into philosophy and approach for a moment. So, do you believe it's essential for schools to offer financial literacy training? And if so, why or why not?
You know, you're not the first person to ask me this. And do I think it's essential? Is it the essential job of a trade school on paper to provide financial education? No, because it's not technically required for licensure. Do I think it's essential to make sure that they're producing graduates that actually stay in this industry, that actually understand? And do I think it's essential if somebody is paying you to go to school to get a job in a trade and you don't even talk about how they're going to actually make money in that trade? Yeah, I think it's essential. I also have empathy for a lot of school owners that, because I work with them all the time, and they're hit left and right with problems and opportunities and obstacles, the changing of the government, and then the Department of Ed is now no longer. So I do have empathy for what it's like to run a school as a business owner, and they're trying to do good, and it's also a really challenging business. So do I think it's essential? No, traditionally. Do I think it school owners who want to have a point of difference and to actually produce graduates that can actually make a living in this career? Yeah, I think it's pretty essential.
I would throw in my 2 cents on this one. I think it's essential understanding the fact that they're not getting it anywhere else.
100%.
Financial literacy. Now, certain states have started to mandate it, but when you really look at the data in terms of financial literacy for just the average American citizen, they're not getting it in grade school, high school, not getting in college. And what happens is the generational starts to repeat each other, like you had mentioned, that most people get it from their family. Well, if the family doesn't have strong financial literacy, you've got a domino effect. So that's my 2 cents. All right, what are some specific patterns schools should consider when it comes to Gen Z financial behaviors and realities?
I think they are very skeptical of debt, is something that's coming out, but they're also drowning in debt. So I think that's something to consider too. They also really value transparency. They're very skeptical of an institution, right? They're skeptical of an institution and they want really big levels of transparency. So I think that's why something we talk about all the time in the program is talking about financial aid immediately and also talking about how much their balance will be and giving a path to pay it off, really making sure that they're talking about how they will actually pay back their student loans. I would also say, even in the way that we teach education, we did a huge shift. Our curriculum before was much more like lecture style, right? It was more like talking at them. That doesn't work with Gen Z. They want to feel like they're being spoken to like a peer and less of a transactional relationship and more of a conversation. And so the curriculum was very much changed based on that to be more conversational versus traditional. I'm going to education. I'm the student. You're the teacher, right? More of a conversational type approach. Those are just a couple things that come to mind. I'm also just thinking about they do identify as being entrepreneurial. And Tom, you'll appreciate the distinguish being identifying as entrepreneurial versus being entrepreneurial. And so I'm looking at the stats here, I think, and we distinguish and we ask people, do you want to be a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or an intrapreneur? In this survey, it's about 50% that say they want to be a entrepreneur. It's a little bit under 30% that want to be a solopreneur and the rest intrapreneur. So they identify, 80-ish% of them say they want to be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. Keep in mind, they're also raised in the gig economy and they're raised on a generation of side hustles. And so if we know, at least in the beauty and wellness sector, based on our data and findings, that the average professional is working 26 hours a week behind the table or chair, well, that's 16% of somebody's week. What else are they doing? How else can they understand if they identify as being entrepreneurial or want to be a solopreneur? Does that actually mean they want to go open their own suite or salon? Does that actually mean that? Or does it mean they also want to have flexibility to do other things? About 30% of Americans right now have a side hustle. And frankly, I think that's going to continue because in many jobs, it's just not enough to sustain for many people. You see wage stagnation and all of the patterns that we've seen. And so the interesting thing though is after they get Qnity education, those stats actually shift. It goes down a little bit and people see, hey, I can make a great living as an intrapreneur. And I know that I use this a lot when we talk to students, that you have kind of a test when you're doing succession planning, if someone is actually entrepreneurial. And what is your test?
I've got multiple tests yet. Sorry, I'm not
Sorry,
telling you.
now I'm interviewing. I'll tell you what it's if they can find the money, right?
Yeah.
If they're trying to buy into a business, can they find the money?
It is true. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. So you set me up with a question and I didn't answer very well. And yeah, I mean, I could get into I could get up on a soapbox about entrepreneurship and the fact
Correct.
that most entrepreneurs are miserable. And I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'm not miserable, but I'm saying that many people are sold a bill of goods about entrepreneurship and they have no idea the risk and the realities of it. I would estimate that somewhere between 10 to 15% of the general public are wired for entrepreneurship. So many are sold a bill of goods, where I think the sweet spot in the economy is entrepreneurship. That's it in terms of my soapbox. But to answer your question, yes, in succession planning, I'm often work with key employees, and I do very candid with them, describe the difference between entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. And many of them make a selection, say, you know what, I'm not cut out for that. To your point, I do. What really keeps an entrepreneur up at money, a salon owner, for example, is money and people. And that's what's going to keep you up. But anyway, I want to stay on philosophy approach a little bit longer because this is about you. What does career ready mean to you? And how does financial literacy fit into that definition?
Yeah, I mean, I think if people look back and say, were they career ready when they graduated from school, regardless of if it's a trade school or a 4-year career path, the answer is absolutely no. I mean, most people aren't truly career ready prepared. This is part of the reason why I joined Qnity. I've told this story many times. I was in school for journalism and I had an internship fall through. So I started interning for you by accident. And I went to all of the classes at that time. You were doing seminars. And I remember sitting in one on 2-number growth, which was how do you increase and grow business, client count and average ticket. And I was like, why is this the first time I'm learning about how to be in business? Okay, the 2 numbers that drive total sales. It was like nobody had ever told me that, right? Let alone learning about a P&L statement and all the things. Granted, I took some business classes, but whatever, it doesn't register. That being said, in a 4-year degree, I think that's another conversation. But in a trade school, I think it's essential that they are career ready. And to me, what that means is they understand the basics of their technical craft, how to do it. By the way, most salons, I see we have a lot of salon and spa owners and med spas on here. They're going to say that they retrain them anyways, right? You're not necessarily for sure ready to go be an expert on your craft. They're not being trained to be experts. They're understanding the basic skills and then they're going to learn on the job, right? So it's partially technical and it is essential they understand the components of money and the different career paths that they have available to them. Do they want to go into a business of one, which by the way, we never recommend for a student? Do they want to go work in an existing establishment, which is what we recommend? Or do they want to immediately open a salon, which frankly nobody should do right after school anyways, right? So it's understanding their career paths, understanding how the business that they're in makes money. I think they have to understand the reality of salon or spa or med spa profitability, and that the owner is not just making a gazillion dollars, right? Understanding the basics of their compensation and frankly how they can contribute to that. And lastly, going back to two number growth, because I think if we talked about one skill that students need to learn, they need to learn how to get clients, period. Because yes, if they go work in an existing establishment, they're gonna have the benefit of having a structure that invests in marketing and helps provide them clients and things like that. But when we talk about how someone can grow their sales and grow their income, they have to see clients and clients have to spend money with them. Well, newsflash, clients can't spend money with you if you don't have clients. And so it's a skill that you're going to need regardless. And so teaching them how to get booked and the basics of how they can do that through referrals, retention, and rebooking. Um, in the most cases for students, it's how do they get clients in their behind their table or chair immediately, because that's their fastest path to starting to make an income. So I think that's pretty critical too. Which, by the way, one other thing on Gen Z is they're very, very fearful of basic conversation and sales and asking for business. The conversational skills and the fear of failure. This is something Jen and I talked about at AACS, is there's an extreme sense of fear of failure with this generation. And so one of the things that Jen and I talked about is how do you actually, and they're not confident too. That's another thing. And so we always talk about this too at Qnity, is how does someone become confident and how does one teach confidence, right? And confidence is a skill that is learned. It's not just an immediate inherent trait for most people, right? So
Yeah. Let's move over to Money EDU 3.0 and the launch. And when we started this company in 2021, and then launched the product, late that year, we knew going into it that what we produced in 2021 wasn't necessarily going to be relevant in 2025. And knew baked into, and one pet peeve I have about education is that it can get stale very quick. And so we took advantage of a lot of feedback and started a year ago, I think is what it was, an update to the curriculum. So take it from here and let's talk about what Money EDU 3.0 is.
yeah, so with education, I mean, it's constantly evolving. The generations are evolving, the learning preferences are evolving. And I think that is what makes Qnity have a point of difference, because as we shared, we've been around for 4 years and we've done 3 program updates at this point, right? So we are constantly taking feedback into account and making updates. And I think one of the major changes that we changed, which was frankly very mixed feedback, and if anyone's seen Money EDU, the videos were very graphically heavy and design heavy. What was really interesting that we found, it was about 50% loved them and 50% didn't. The people that also pretty much unanimously loved them were actually the owners of the school. They loved the videos. They loved the graphic and design element. And then as we went down kind of the list of stakeholders, right, we have 3 of them. We have the owners and directors and leaders, let's call them. Then we have the educators who are responsible for bringing that curriculum to life. And then the end user who we're actually trying to transform and get them to retain information, which is the student. And so it was pretty much unanimous top level loved them. And then as we went down between educators and students, it was pretty much 50-50. And so we ultimately decided, 50 loving and 50 not loving is not good enough and it needs a change, right? So we actually fully went into the studio and fully reproduced. We did a ton of focus groups, but kind of the biggest style difference is it's no longer the graphical style. It's using B-roll and real images. It's more TikTok-esque, not as fast, but more real people. Educators are actually sitting in studios. So they're sitting behind a massage or SD table in a barber studio or in kind of a cause studio. So it's really relevant to the learner that they're actually in their environment. And it's much more conversational versus someone standing in front of essentially a white screen with graphics coming over. That's a big update. The videos are also shorter and faster. Another big update. Activities are much more real world applied. A lot of them were, but we went kind of to another level to make sure that the real world application um, was even better than it was. The educator resources, frankly, I'm biased. They were always fantastic. We continued to make them fantastic. We just made them prettier. But the educator PowerPoints, the lesson plans, all of that is still there to really make sure that the educators can facilitate, not teach. There's a big difference in those words. For educators, is they're facilitators of the content. So it really is career relevant learning that will really help them understand how to apply it. Another big difference is we had a modular approach, right? It was money in, or money mindset, money in, money out, money borrowed. And technically, the curriculum was best done kind of following that order. You could certainly move it around, but now it's essentially every lesson is drag and drop. A lot of our schools are like, hey, I want to do student loans at the start because we talk about how they're going to pay back, and then do it again at the end. And also job readiness and how they're actually going to make an income, moving that towards the end versus kind of the sequential learning path. And so it's just much more flexible in terms of design. We also have very specific 24 videos that are more instructional style, and they're essentially appropriate for anyone and everyone in a trade about financial readiness. So any of the most important financial related topics someone in a trade needs to know. And then we did what's called a beauty and wellness track, so to speak. All of those 24 videos essentially apply the topics hyper specific for someone in a beauty and wellness trade. So the exciting thing is we went deeper for our beauty and wellness audience, but we now have a version that is applicable to all trades. So we have our first school. It's a long-term school of ours in the beauty and wellness school. I'm not going to publicly say it until we're live. That is piloting this to their allied health students starting in January. So we will now be going into healthcare for this curriculum, which is super exciting. And beauty and wellness is still our passion and our focus. And also we know that this is applicable for other trades. And so we're excited to bring that into other trade schools.
I'm going to come back to healthcare a little bit later, related with an announcement, but staying with Money EDU 3.0, anything else that drove the changes, or did you cover them?
Let me see. I'm just thinking through my notes. I know if we have any of our school team members, our school team is very passionate and very involved in the updates. So jump in the chat, any of my school team members here. But no, honestly, I really think it was really driven by feedback from our customers. I mean, like, that's the beauty too, is our schools will be like, I don't like this. I want more of this. Great, we're going to update it. Oh, there is one new thing. That's a beta version, and we have 2 schools testing this before it goes live. I do think Michael Shea is on here. Where's Michael? Is he here? Hi, Michael. Oh, and Roberto's here. Okay, cool. I'm just seeing if any of our school owners are here. So we have a couple of our school customers on here. Thank you both for your support. And please, also, I want to shout out, if you are a business owner, please say thank you to your school owners, because they have not an easy job to produce graduates, and there's a lot of demands and expectations from them, from supporters, from future employers, and from the government. So just give them some grace and say thank you for them choosing to bring in something like Qnity, because as we said, it is technically non-essential, but we really do believe it's a huge point of difference for these schools. But we are testing, if you guys on the professional side know about our tracking tool, which is 2-number growth. We launched a digital tracker. It is in beta format, and we are beta testing it with a couple school groups. Roberto is actually one of them. So I think Roberto, our team, I might be saying it soon, we're approaching you to do one of the tracking, because Roberto also owns a salon and spa. So he's familiar on the professional side. So my hope is with that tracker is, how can we use that as a resource to encourage sales behaviors and truly teach business readiness, but also be a vehicle to drive revenue on the clinic floor. So eventually we could actually say this curriculum and give you a tool to drive revenue and maximize revenue on the clinic floor, which could pay for the curriculum itself, hopefully, for people. So
awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned Roberto, who he's in Canada. And so one thing that we did, I don't know, it was just maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, is we did a Canadian version.
Mhm.
I actually had to learn Canadian tax law so that we could do a Canadian tax video. So we're glad that we include not just US, but also Canada. Those are the only two countries we're in right now.
Mhm.
Anything else that, schools and students can expect from the new version of the curriculum?
I think you can just expect a better product, period. Yeah.
Uh, okay, so let's get to curriculum and content a little bit here. I'm looking at the clock. We're doing good on time here. What are the most important topics we cover in the program, and as well as the prioritization of them?
Um, well, one, I think is student loan repayment, really actually teaching somebody what it means to take out a student loan and how they're going to repay it and the reality around that. That's very important to schools who are trying to manage default rates. That's equally as important to the person who borrowed the money as it is to the school right now. So teaching how to pay back student loans. Taxes is a huge one. I'm constantly reminded of this. I was just presenting in front of a bunch of solopreneurs actually for a modern salon event. And I asked somebody what their biggest line item and expense was. And the hands were raised of groceries or rent. And nobody says taxes. People forget that that's oftentimes our biggest expense in life. And so, really teaching the realities of taxes, what they mean. I think there's a huge gap and fear, and it's just a reality, and nobody pays attention to it. So, taxes is a big one. How to actually get clients. I think that's like foundational basic level skills somebody needs to know if they're working in a trade, especially if 80% of them say they want to be entrepreneurial. Um, oh gosh, school team, what else feels super important? Taxes, different career opportunities and compensation of how they'll oh yes, of course, two number growth, that's a classic one. So how they can drive sales, the reality of profitability for a business owner. For salons and spas, it's 2 to 5%. So we teach students how to read a P&L, so they understand, and also um, understand what it means to be a business owner, and hopefully go into their place of business with a posture of support of how they can support and contribute to the business versus what that business can do for them. Um, we also did do Corinne is our trainer and responsible for this product, and she's on here too. Also as a hairdresser too, and so she's really
Contracts,
passionate about it.
agreements,
What?
she's
Oh,
putting things in the chat, contracts, agreements. It's also spending, savings, planning,
yeah,
budgeting,
investing.
professionalism,
Yeah, and I
ethics.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we did different too, that was also a request, was some more of the soft skills. Like we were pretty heavy on finance, and that's important. And we also wove in some of the soft skills of like, how do you be a professional? And so I think the last lesson in the curriculum is becoming a professional, right? Like you're no longer a student. How do you show up as a professional? And teaching some of those skills, becoming a pro. Thank you, Corinne.
So let's see here. What is there one financial concept you wish every graduate understood before they entered the real world?
Yeah, I think they just need to understand how they're going to make money.
All right. And these are traditionally dry financial topics. And Corinne just put in the chat. So
Corinne
she's
says tracking. Corinne, I do want to say this for those of you who don't know. She's like a poster child. She was a student of ours for a long time ago, about 7-ish years ago. We can't really do the math. And she learned about money, started using the tracking tool that we teach in the program. And in 1 year, she increased her income by $42,000. And so we have a lot of people who say that the success that they attribute to that is really using a tracker to track their total sales and understand their pattern. So I think that's a great call out. Corinne is really teaching the importance of someone actually tracking their performance.
and you're hearing from someone that's done it in the real world. Yeah, that's right. I mean, 42,000, if you look at that over 3 years, you're talking about $125,000 from one habit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so traditionally dry financial topics, making it engaging for young students. Anything else you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think just
Okay.
making it visual, keeping it shorter, making it more real world appropriate.
So any specific results or transformations from students going through the program you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we've talked about a lot is we're primarily reliant on pre and post program surveys, right? We can't necessarily go direct to students for compliance and legal issues. And so we've heard anecdotal feedback, but the one thing that we can measure is a 60% improvement rate in terms of financial confidence and financial literacy after students take the program and complete it. So I think that's a really powerful metric. I think we've heard, many really amazing stories, including one of our employees who started as an educator and then she had to relocate states. And so she needed a remote job, and she came on board and she is on track to become debt free, and just purchased, I think, like 6 acres of land. And so some of the byproducts that also can happen with educators as well, too, I think is really powerful.
Good stuff, Erin. I thought this would take about 20 minutes. Here we are almost at 40 minutes. And before we move on, today is an interesting day because we will be releasing a press release about a study that's just been completed over the last little over a year, actually. And we partnered with our 2 PhDs that really are part of the Qnity Institute, Dr. Bruce Kellison and Dr. Matt Kammer-Kerwick, both of them from the University of Texas Bureau of Business Research. And the press release is new report shows for-profit nursing programs deliver strong outcomes at a lower cost to taxpayers. So this was a study that was performed, we were commissioned to do on behalf of CQ. CQ stands for what again, Erin?
Career education, colleges and universities.
Gotcha. So when you mentioned a little bit earlier about trades, it's really an extension into other trades, and super interesting because it looked at the cost and performance of registered nurses and practical nurses among different sectors of higher education using federal data, et cetera, et cetera. And the report concluded that for-profit programs deliver comparable outcomes to public and nonprofit programs at a significantly lower cost to taxpayers. To your point earlier about the trades being an area of great growth, and I'm going to go a little bit further. So what the study showed is the taxpayer cost per student averages 14, I'm going to round numbers a little bit, 14,000, no, I'm not going to round numbers. This is a very exact report. $14,482 at public and nonprofit RN programs compared to just $47.75 at for-profit RN programs. And as it relates to public and nonprofit practical nurse programs, the difference was $13,668 compared to $7,150 for profit. So it also notes that for-profit colleges have historically higher graduation rates, and expands the outcome analysis to find median earnings for RN programs are similar across public, nonprofit, or for-profit programs. So anyway, is there anything you want to say? I mean, here's the press release. It's going out today. The 2 PhDs did a great job. It is performed by the Qnity Institute, but it really was in partnership and collaboration with these academic research partners, which that's the highest standard of research, which is academic research. Anything on that before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I think, Tom, if you want to relate it, how is this relevant to our audience, right? Because I'm sure it could seem a bit random, like, whoa, you guys are doing a study on nursing. From our standpoint, we were commissioned to do this, and really it supports overall the benefit
Economic
of
empowerment.
for-profit.
Yeah.
Well, it also demonstrates the power of for-profit institutions, which almost all of our schools are that we work with. And so really they wanted to look at one category, specifically nursing. And we've done studies around earnings and compensation for beauty and wellness professionals. So we really enlisted our PhDs to support with a study, but it was done over the umbrella of Qnity Institute.
Well, there we go, Erin. Another one in the books. Let's give her a virtual round of applause. Let's make sure that she gets another $1 million light bulb that will proudly sit on your shelf. So bravo, thank you. Good stuff, Erin. Very articulate. very compelling. And, it's good to get these updates on this. So, and thanks again to our sponsors. Erin, do you have any final words?
No, thanks. Thanks all. And thanks for having me.
All right. Our pleasure. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Take
And
care. Thanks, everyone.
we will see you in an upcoming episode. Certainly put something in the chat, share it. And whether you listen to us live today or watching on YouTube or the podcast, we're glad you're with us. And Erin, thanks again for doing a great job explaining all of this. And we'll see all of you later. Bye.